Most people don't even believe me when I tell them. But I have a job where I work from home. People in my area mostly work with cars or in the medical industry. There aren't many jobs where I live. Thankfully, I was able to land a decent paying job that let me work from my home office. It definitely comes with its struggles, but it is hands down the best job opportunity available to me right now. It isn't always perfect. It definitely comes with its pitfalls. Sometimes you have to sit at your computer even when there isn't any work to be done. It's also very easy to get distracted. But I think my biggest problem has to do with the house itself. It's kind of creepy. The house itself is an old Victorian. Like really old. We're talking mid-1800s. A family friend owned the house and sold it to me for a very fair price. Basically gave it to me. I was super excited because it meant I got a nice big house to live in by myself along with my girlfriend. I'm a natural loner and don't really care for social interaction. So, I had a nice big house all to myself and girlfriend and a job where I worked from home with very minimal social interaction with other people. That was basically my ideal life. But the house's age meant that it was going to be scary at times. And I don't mean with ghosts or anything like that. But sometimes, I hear the house settling or making noises that I can't explain. I've actually had quite a few instances where I'll be sitting down and doing some work, and then out of nowhere, I hear a noise that I just can't rationalize. I go exploring throughout the house only to find that nothing has changed. It's as ominous as it is frustrating. I did what just about anyone else in the world would do. I started to use background noise to drown out the disturbances. First, I tried those quiet instrumentals on YouTube. You know, the ones that last 5 hours and they're supposed to put you at ease or something. It didn't really work for me because I couldn't get my computer to be loud enough to drown out all the noises. It was also not very good at keeping my attention. There was one week where my work was really slow and there wasn't a whole lot to do. I still had to sit at my computer though. There was an understanding that I was allowed to basically do anything I wanted as long as I was available to my coworkers if something came through that needed to be done. I didn't quite know what to do with this time and just started watching documentaries on YouTube. It actually was pretty fun. I learned a lot. So, that next week when things started picking up again, I just instinctively turned on a documentary. I wouldn't be able to have all of my focus on it, but it was a lot better than having some ambient noise. It actually helped distract me from the sounds of the house. I guess I just didn't have enough mental focus energy to notice any of the other sounds going on around me. If that makes any sense. Well, it had been about 2 weeks of me watching documentaries while I worked. Everything seemed to be good. Until one Friday morning. I start work at 8 and this must have happened around 10. I was sitting at my office chair working while I listened to a documentary about a 9/11 conspiracy theory, when all of a sudden, I heard an abrupt banging noise coming from upstairs. Like I had said, I hadn't been distracted by any noises for a while by this point. So, the fact that I noticed this noise meant that it was probably serious. My fight or flight kicked in. You might laugh at me, but when I work, I keep a knife next to me. I ran upstairs with the knife and looked around for any suspicious noises. The banging had stopped and I didn't know where it had come from. I knew what section of the house that I heard it from, but there didn't seem to be anything out of place. I stood there for a few moments and then I heard it again. It happened right on the other side of my door. I immediately braced myself for there to be some kind of animal or something trying to get in. I didn't really know what to expect. I opened my door to see that the screen door had not been properly closed. My girlfriend didn't close it all the way when she left for work that morning. It was also pretty windy that day, so it was just going back and forth causing a banging noise when the wind got bad. This was kind of a breaking point for me. I didn't want to live my life in constant paranoia and fear of some kind of attacker coming into my home. We live in a safe area. There's never been a serious threat. And I have run around my house with a knife way too many times now. I honestly felt kind of stupid. So I made a decision. I was no longer going to assume that someone was breaking in if and when I ever heard a sound. I put the knife in my dresser in my bedroom and decided that I was going to just be into work while I was working, except for my documentary, of course. So, there I was the next week. It happened on a Wednesday. I was sitting in my office doing exactly what I had set out to do. I was working, ignoring the noises, and listening to a documentary. I remember the exact part of the documentary I was on when I heard it. The sound was the loudest sound I had heard in the house up to that point. At first, I reassured myself that it was nothing and that I need to fight against this paranoia. The sound continued, and I couldn't take my mind off it. After about 5 minutes of listening to what sounded like rummaging and walking, I went upstairs to check. Bear in mind, I didn't have any weapon on me and I was expecting some kind of reasonable explanation. When I got to my kitchen, I saw that the front door was wide open. The cabinets were all open and there was a strange man rummaging through the stuff. I didn't notice until after the fact, but he had been eating something. I remember screaming at him. I don't remember what I said, but it was something to the effect of, "What are you doing in my house?" Then, he just ran off. Didn't say a word. He took a loaf of bread with him, but I don't think you took anything else, other than what he had eaten before I came upstairs. I reasoned with myself that he must have been a homeless man or something. I don't know why else you would steal a loaf of bread from a very ordinary-looking house. This was the worst thing that could have happened. On some instinctive level, it had proved all of my worst fears right. There was some kind of danger in my house. And of course, it was the one time when I didn't have my knife on me. I lucked out that he didn't try to hurt me or anything, but it was still horrifying to see nonetheless. I just work at a local coffee shop now. It's the only way to stay sane. I was 14 years old at the time. I'm a male. Pretty typical. I would call myself a nerd. I like to play video games and I'm pretty good at them too. When my friends and I play Fortnite online, I always do the best. I went through a really hard time though. The thing is, I have really, really bad allergies. Like horrendously bad. They're so bad that sometimes I sneeze blood. I mean, my nose is bleeding from the constant allergies and then I sneeze blood all over the place like some kind of a freak. It sucked. When I was 14, my mom wanted to try something out. She came home one day with a mysterious bag containing something in it. I remember asking her what it was. I thought it was going to be some kind of a new type of tissue or some kind of air filter for the house. Wasn't any of that. It was a medicine. She said that this medicine was going to take care of my allergies. I really wanted to believe her. So, I started taking this new medicine and all seemed to be working for the first few weeks. I didn't notice anything being off and everything seemed fine. My usual springtime allergies were no more. As you might expect, I just continued on with life like any other 14-year-old would. I went back to playing video games. Hanging out with my friends occasionally. I want to say it was about a month later that something started to change. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I wasn't feeling myself. I was in a bit of a brain funk. And it was strange because I normally feel really present and aware in the moment. I always attributed my mental agility to being the reason that I was the best out of all my friends at video games all these years. I mean, why else would I be? But I wasn't as good as I used to be though. I wasn't the best out of my friend group anymore. The skill gap between myself and at least two of my other friends seemed to vanish completely. It was as if my skill level had gone down. I know it seems like a minor problem, but that really took me down a peg. I really enjoyed being the best there was. And now I wasn't. It made me feel sad. Sadder than I've been in a long time. And it wasn't that I have never experienced tragedy or something else. I remember being really close with my grandfather and he died when I was probably about 12 or 13, so I've gone through stuff before. But for some reason, not being the best in a video game really took a toll on my well-being. As weird as that might be to say. I gradually started pulling back from my friend group altogether. I would just play video games by myself. The social interaction seemed to be too much for me anymore. I didn't enjoy it like I used to. And that was when everything changed. I wasn't the person I had been before. And looking back, I'm surprised I didn't notice sooner. It all came to a head one night. My mom had some kind of work function. Some kind of party or something like that. I don't even really remember what it was. I just remember thinking it was stupid. I felt really alone. My dad died when I was younger, and I was also an only child. So I was home by myself. 14 years old. You would think that a kid that age would love to be home by himself. But I didn't. I was horrified. I felt the feeling inside of myself that truly mortified me. Petrified my bones. I wanted to kill myself. I just felt this intense sensation of worthlessness. I don't even know why either. I got good grades in school. I had friends, but I just didn't enjoy being around them anymore. I didn't know what the hell changed. I just had this overwhelming sense of loneliness. It was a dark whispering voice in the back of my head that told me all of the horrible things that I hated to hear. This voice. It told me that I should be dead. That I was just a burden to my mother. That I didn't have any real friends. That all of the guys in my former friend group moved on and completely forgot about me. Didn't even care that I was gone. And here I was, alone in this house. All by myself. Couldn't even think of a reason not to do it. I know exactly how I would do it if I wanted to. We watched a mental health awareness video in my psychology class at high school, and all you had to do was take as many pills as you could. And you would surely die. They called it a cocktail. I kind of wanted to have one myself. I remember sitting in my living room. I was trying to work up the nerve to actually swallow the pills. Couldn't bring myself to do it though. For some reason, something was stopping me. And I couldn't figure out what. The voice in my head made perfect sense. I had no reason left to live. No reason would ever present itself in the future either. I was a nothing in a big nothing world. I slapped my hand on the table. For some reason that gave me the bursts of motivation I needed to start swallowing those pills. I opened the cocktail that I had made. Just random stuff from the medicine cabinet. Nothing in particular. I was going to take them one by one. I had my mouth already open and everything. But my phone told me that there was a text message. By whatever stroke of luck that it hit me, I decided to answer the text before I decided to go. I slowly made my way to the other room and picked up my cell phone. Pressed the on button to see that it was my friend Walton. He was asking if I wanted to play with them. I texted back, yes. The next morning, I told my mom about the incident. She was really concerned and wanted to send me for a psychiatric evaluation. But before we did that, my mom thought it might have had something to do with that allergy medicine that I was on. Well, it turned out that it was the entire cause of my depression. I was an otherwise happy and healthy kid. But that medicine had some particular side effects. Side effects that my mom did not mention to me when I started taking it. One of the major side effects was depression. It's been some time since I had been on that allergy medicine. It got put on recall. They literally had to take it off the shelves because it was making the users depressed and suicidal. I'm really thankful that I was able to escape that situation with my life. I realize how close I really was to hurting myself. I almost died. And I'll never forget that experience. Ever since then, I never want to be home alone again. This story happened a month ago. It was hands down the scariest moment of my life. Everything turned out fine in the end. No one died or anything. Thank goodness for that. But I really did not think that at the time. It goes something like this. My friend and I were very interested in witchcraft. We live in the Bible Belt, and there has always been a strong stigma against paganism or spiritual beliefs other than Christianity. Like any sane human beings, we naturally rebelled and became fascinated with witchcraft, the occult, and other stuff like that. That's not to say we're satanic or anything. Those kinds of people definitely exist, but we were really just interested more so than genuinely trying to discover a new religion or something. I mean, I still go to church every Sunday. Anyway, a couple years ago, I had introduced my friend to witchcraft. She didn't know anything about it before, but wow, she really went off the deep end. I was only moderately interested, but she took it to a new extreme. She even runs some kind of witch group on Facebook. I heard it's pretty popular. She knows witches and warlocks from all over the world and regularly participates in paganistic festivals. This one weekend, my parents had planned a trip to go to the beach. It was their anniversary. They took a trip every year to somewhere different, although it seemed like they almost always picked the beach for some reason. It was never the same beach, but a beach nonetheless. Anyway, this was our opportunity to hang out all weekend without any interference from my parents or anyone else. As I'm sure you're already guessing, we were going to be doing some witchy stuff. That wasn't the only thing we had planned though. Late that Friday night, we had simply watched a movie. The next day, we spent most of our time doing our nails and makeup. We didn't really have anywhere to go, so we just walked down to the convenience store that's down the road from my house. There's a small diner inside of it. They only offer a couple things to eat. So we went there, got some waffles at like 3, and after waiting around for a while, decided to go back to my place. By the time we were getting settled in for the night, I could feel both of our moods changing. We were both getting really excited to be doing the ritual. We talked about it a little bit here and there. She told me that she had something grand planned for that night. She didn't tell me what exactly that was going to be though. We got settled in for the night, and by the time we did, the sun was already setting. We were ready to be doing this ritual. I asked my friend if she wanted to do it and she said yes. She went to her backpack that she brought to get something out. I wasn't sure what it was going to be. I honestly wasn't sure what physical objects you needed to do any kind of ritual. I mean, can't you just channel your spirituality or something? Well, I remember feeling something in my body change the second she got it out. The atmosphere was different. The hair on my arms was standing up. She pulled out a Ouija board. I don't know if you believe in any of this stuff, but I can tell you that I was only a half believer until I felt my body physically change the second I was in the presence of that board. There's a certain power to it. The ability to communicate with spirits or ghosts. Maybe something else entirely. Who knows? My friend brought the Ouija board to the kitchen table and we both sat down. My mind was racing with questions. All I can say for sure is that I wanted to talk to a ghost. I already knew who I wanted to speak with before we even started channeling anyone. My grandmother. She had horrible cancer toward the end of her life, and that was how she died. She passed away in this house. It was a few years back. I was young. Always had this feeling that I didn't spend enough time with her. And I always had a lingering feeling that her spirit was still with us. And tonight was going to be the night that I got to speak with her once and for all. We sat down and began the ritual. Unfortunately, we didn't have any candles, so we just had to turn out all of the lights except for the stove light. There was also some light coming in from a street light outside, and it looked really good and spooky. I told her that we were going to be talking to my grandma first, as she was still in the house with us. She agreed, and we started calling out to her. So here was the first weird part. I only addressed the spirit as my grandma. I never told my friend what my grandmother's actual name was. As much as I kind of wanted to believe that I was going to be able to speak with her, I felt like it would have been disrespectful to use her full name when doing the ritual. So I only referred to her as Grandma. Eventually, we got a reply. We asked if anyone was with us. The first time we asked, it went to no. And then again the second time. But the third time, the pointer went to say yes. Now, this is where it gets freaky. Because when we asked who was with us, it spelled out my grandmother's name. Again, my friend did not know my grandmother's name. I just found it weird. After the name had been spelled out, my friend asked me who it was. When I told her that it was my grandmother's name, she started getting really excited. That wasn't the feeling that I got to. I got really freaked out. It made me nervous. And that was the moment that I had realized that there was more to this world than what we see. Way more. I totally get it if it doesn't prove anything for you, especially because you can't verify what I'm saying. But for me, it was more than enough. Unfortunately, that was the only paranormal activity that we got all night. Nothing else of interest happened. Didn't stop us from trying again the next day though. My friend and I followed a similar routine on Saturday, and by the time it was getting dark, we had that Ouija board out. My parents had to be home on Sunday, so we knew that this was going to be our last night of doing this. So it happened like this. We sat down to try and contact another spirit. This time, we didn't try to contact my grandma. We just tried any spirit in the vicinity or in the house. I remember sitting down with my friend and saying, "If anyone is with us, please, will you give us a sign?" And at that exact moment, we heard a loud banging on the garage door. We both started screaming because we thought some kind of horrible spirit had been unleashed. We freaked out for a little while, but get this. It was my dad. He knew that I was letting my friend sleep over at our house and wanted to pull a joke on us. It may have been funny for him, he still laughs about it sometimes, but it was absolutely mortifying for me. To think that I had unknowingly unleashed some kind of demonic beast into the world. That was truly the worst part. Because it made me realize, if we had somehow done something in the spiritual realm, there wasn't really anything we can do to undo it. There is no Control plus Z with a ghost.